Chug it.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit. Today we are joined by Ben Schemper, who is the CEO of Abundant, the former Chief Sales Officer and Sales Trainer at Epic Impact, and one of the most sought-after influence, leaderships, and sales performance mentors in the country. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adrian. It's good to be here with you.
Can we start out? Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the people that you help?
Yeah. Well, I consider myself a leadership development mentor, you could say. That's the space I've been in really for the last 20 years. I mean, I was doing that within companies for the first part of my career. And then I branched off and started to kind of create my own leadership community. So there's been different phases over the years. But currently I'm really inspired by just working with men. And so I made the decision to make our programs men's only. Not that, the leadership and influence wisdom that we have is not applicable to everyone, but I think there's something special about like men's only containers. And so that's who I'm typically working with now as men in leadership positions or entrepreneurs, high performing salespeople.
Now, do you find that working, with only men, do you find that that's something where you can speak more openly and honestly to that experience than you would be able to otherwise?
That's exactly why I made that choice. I mean, one, I think that it's just an interesting time to be a man, right? And the pendulum is kind of swung, and there's, the beautiful shift in our society of like valuing diversity and, a lot of other groups besides men being kind of on center stage and their issues. But, I think that men are kind of trying to find their place in this modern world we live in, and it can be tricky. So, I think just the space to have that conversation and, define what it means to you to be like a good man that you respect. Because sometimes people aren't sure if they're supposed to be their dad or their sister today, So it's like, I think we need those spaces no matter what our profession is, just as men. And yeah, like the greatest work is done when we can kind of get to the raw, more authentic truths of the inner world that's holding us back. And that's just a lot easier to do and create safety around if it's just men.
Interesting. And can you tell me a little bit about sort of, Abundant itself and what led to the formation of Abundant?
Yeah. So, I think it like starts with my kind of early career. So I come from the world of Cutco originally, the kitchen knives.
Oh, yeah.
You heard of that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I paid my way through school with that, and I loved it. Like, it was the first time I was in sales, and I learned so much about myself. I was learning a new skill, and I just had a lot of fun with it. And I had the motivation of going to an expensive school. So like I needed to excel. And Cutco has an amazing management training program. So like as a 19-year-old, I got to run my own business where I, recruited, trained 60 sales reps in one summer at 19. Like I had my own team. That was just like an awesome opportunity for leadership at such a young age. And so I kind of just ate that up for 7 years, went as far as I could go with that. And I continued my own education and, did a lot of leadership training outside of there, and just organically got to the point where my peers were like, hey, I think you know more about this than I do. I'm starting to get into leadership positions. What do I do? And so I also had a vision at a Tony Robbins event that it was time to step into this. Yeah. And so that was how it started. And, I just worked with people in my immediate sphere, and apparently it worked, and people got results and did big things, and things have just kind of grown naturally from there.
I think that's amazing that you came from Cutco. just an aside, my freshman year roommate in college was a Cutco guy, and
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you the number of pennies we cut in half in that dorm room.
Oh, it's a good party trick for sure. Right?
That was it. Always the cutting. Let me tell you a joke. While I cut this penny in half, oh, the scissors were too sharp. I didn't have time to finish the joke.
That's right.
That was always the sales move. So
That's good.
can you tell me a little bit about the problems and the pains and pain points that people are experiencing when they come to Abundant seeking your help and guidance? What are some of the things that they're experiencing in their business?
Yeah. So, I think typically people come to Abundant once they're already a high performer, right? So, whether they're in sales or they're an entrepreneur, well, I'd say there's kind of 2 points. So one is that somebody is like they're already achieving, and they've, reached that standard, however they define it for themselves. But it's kind of like they got to where they wanted to get to, but it doesn't fulfill them the way they thought it would. And so it's this question of like, well, what more is there? Like, and
Right.
what's next, right? So a lot of people kind of come to me in that moment where there's something missing and they're not quite sure what it is. And it's typically just that they need to do the work to get clear on what's important to them in this next chapter. Like now that they've already achieved at a high level, like what is meaningful to them. And second, I would say is, people who have a new direction. They have a vision for where they want to take their company or their team or their career, and they know they're about to pivot in some way and step into something more, and so they realize that they need some support in that.
And I guess now this might be peeling back the cover a little bit too much. So
I'm an open book.
Forgive me if I'm digging too deep, but I'm curious when you are helping these people, what are some of the methods and methodologies that you are using to sort of help guide them to that realization of finding what they ultimately need?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, when people are feeling stuck or not clear or just like something's missing, I think that a change is usually what's necessary, right? It's like we got to change it up in that moment. And, the answer is not more of the same. It's not working harder. It's not, keep doing the things that I've been doing that are supposedly the right things, but aren't, creating the fulfillment or even the same level of achievement that it once did. And so, to be honest, like the main process is taking people out of their environment, out of their world, right? Getting them like into a new experience that opens them up, right? So, when people work with me or work with Abundant, the first thing that they do is they come to one of our events, right? So like I don't have people in my programs unless they've come to an event. I don't coach people unless they've come to an event. And, I like to do really unique experiences. Like I just got back a couple weeks ago from taking a group of men to do a vision quest in the desert,
wow.
right? Yeah. And, sales leaders, entrepreneurs who, ultimately are wanting to excel more in their business. But like, where did we start? Well, we went and camped. We got off the grid. We fasted for 36 hours, spent a night in the wilderness by ourselves, did some sweat lodges, right? And regardless of if somebody feels like drawn to those traditions, it was definitely a new experience and it taught them some things, right? So getting people out of their environment, challenging them, helping them almost like do something entirely different than like being caught up in their own problems and challenges. People then are just way more open and able to kind of look at things with a new perspective. And so it's like from there, now we can ask the questions that I maybe could have asked on a coaching call, but we're going to get totally different answers. And they're going to do that from a place of really more self-awareness. Right?
And that's great that you said that, because that leads perfectly in what I was just getting ready to ask is, can you speak a little bit about the importance of having that sort of moment of self-reflection, that moment of self-awareness? Why is it so important for business leaders to be self-aware?
Yeah, well, when someone is like stewarding is a word I use a lot, or nurturing their self-awareness, right? It's like a bank account in a way, like they're making deposits into it, right? Whether that's
Mm.
a daily practice or, once a quarter, having an experience where you go learn something, go to a training, or just go out in nature, like do something that is less busy, right? And is more development oriented, or it's just a new experience. And when leaders are doing that consistently, then they have a better relationship with their own clarity, right?
Mm.
And leaders can't really lead unless they're clear, right? Like, where are you taking people, right? Where are we going? If the leader doesn't know, then we're not really going anywhere, right? And so, I think that leaders, when they value that nurturing, that stewarding of their own self-awareness, then they're going to consistently have clarity themselves, which is just going to help them to relate to their teams, their customers, their shareholders, their board, whoever it is, right? In a way more powerful and authentic way, right? They're not trying to present something or give people what they need. It's like, now people can actually partner with you, and we can go after the vision because you're clear as the leader.
And that kind of feeds into this notion of businesses and business leaders and their teams being fully aligned. Can you kind of talk about the importance of that alignment?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different levels of alignment, right? So there's alignment on, where we're going, like we're all clear on that. There's alignment of how we're going to get there, right? Like what the plan is, what our standards are, our culture. And there's also like the deepest level of alignment that I try to support teams with. I don't try to, it's what I do when I work with teams, is alignment in like we're all together committed to creating this experience where the experience is we're on a shared learning journey,
Right.
right? So we all have things to learn together. We have things to learn individually. And really, beyond our goals in business, beyond the ways that our business needs to develop and optimize, like at the core, the highest performing businesses, teams, and cultures are creating the experience together of like, hey, we're just on a journey to learn and we're going to share that. Right. So when that happens, a lot of things take care of themselves.
And I'm really interested. I love this notion of getting people sort of out of their comfort zones, taking them, on a vision quest in the desert. Are there any more sort of unorthodox methods that you use to break through to business
Yeah,
sales leaders that you could share?
totally. Let me answer that in a way that's kind of practical for anybody who's watching. Right. So kind of a funny story. I was somewhat freaking out a little bit at the beginning of the pandemic because at the end of the day, it's like everybody starts at it with an event, right? So like that was a new challenge to figure out, like, what do I do now, right? Where we can't gather. And I um, wanted to be really safe and responsible with how I, led people in my programs, worked with the organizations I was working with at a time where like we didn't know what was going on, like we didn't know what was happening. And I, yeah, I just kind of early on in the pandemic saw that like the silver bullet is there's a lot of helpful measures that decrease spread. There's but honestly the silver bullet was just be outside, spend time
Mm.
outside, right? So you can gather outside, and like that's better than wearing masks, right? That's better than, even if people are vaccinated, right? It's like it just didn't spread out there, right? The same way. So I actually started to run events again sooner than most of my peers, but they were all outdoors, right? They
Interesting.
were, yeah. So like all of the meeting spaces were, I live in the Bay, so I started taking people to the redwoods a lot, and there's a couple great places I found out here, and I was like, oh, this is great, right? And we were testing and like, doing all the things, but really, the silver bullet for us being able to do the thing that we do best, creating these live experiences, was we're just going to do them outdoors now. We're just going to do them outdoors. Now, what I saw in that was just how much more people got out of the experiences than if we were in like a hotel seminar room, right?
Right.
And there's research I've seen that like if a team just spends time together in nature, they will perform at a higher level than teams that don't, right?
Interesting.
So, it's like we work in the office or, today it's often at home, right? But I think that we've got to get the team outdoors together, right? And just that alone, I think is a beautiful ritual that will get people into different perspectives, almost more effectively than anything else, right? So maybe I'll just give that answer.
Are there any methods that you utilize that you maybe wouldn't utilize if the events and things that you put on were not men only? Are there any sort of differences there that you feel, that you feel more comfortable doing things? This is a men's only space, so we're going to do this, that we might not do that otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just leaning into things that are, typically more masculine, right?
Right.
So, by the way, I've done a lot of like really challenging things with women in my programs too. And to
Sure.
be honest, sometimes they're more courageous than some of the men, right? So but I think that men more are seeking those challenges, right? So yeah, just like doing some harder stuff, like finding something hard to do together. I would say that's one method that I definitely lean into more with men. And with a group of men, it's kind of like guys can get excited about that. Like, let's go do something hard, right?
Right.
We're not going to mess up our hair or whatever. So yeah.
Hey,
Except
I work
you got
hard on
nice hair though. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm curious. We've talked a little bit about, some of the problems that people are experiencing when they come to Abundant, some of the challenges they are facing. I would like to talk conversely about what does it look like when people are facing those challenges and they don't seek out mentorship, they don't seek out coaching, they don't seek out guidance. What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to overstate the value of getting perspective. Like if you want to be at the top of your game, whatever the game is that you're playing, right? It's like you look at any example in sports or business today is an arena of competition. It's like the best people always have their team that's supporting them, right? Some level of mentorship or coaching or like peer group, board of advisors. They have that counsel, right? That they can get perspective from. And, I think when people don't have that, they just get stuck longer, right? Like, one of the core beliefs I operate from is that, you know, essentially your potential is what's natural, right? Like
Right.
you being at your best is what's natural as long as you have the right environment. Like a cactus doesn't grow in the Arctic and a polar
Mm.
bear doesn't thrive in the desert, right? But those are two very rugged environments. And, for something that's natural in that environment, like it's going to thrive, right? Despite the conditions. So, what that means for each individual, I think is a learning journey, like to learn what the environment is that brings out the best in you. But it's always going to involve some level of outside perspective. And, if our potential is natural, then one of the things that keeps us from, tapping into more of it or just our learning, our growth, our development is just the times where we're stuck, right? We're stuck, feeling stuck. Like I have this problem, I have this challenge, there's this thing that's not changing, right? And it's like the longer that we can be stuck for a few minutes, we can be stuck for a few hours, we can be stuck for a few days, right? I've gotten stuck for a year before. And it's
Right.
kind of like I was stuck because I wasn't, there weren't other people looking inside the box. Like I was keeping the box kind of shut,
Mm.
right? And just trying to figure it out for myself in there, right? So I think that's the experience is that it's just more likely to be stuck longer.
So it's really important to have that sort of outside perspective, right?
You're correct. Yeah.
And
Of course that you trust, right? Like
absolutely. Can you share with our listeners what are some of the things you mentioned, creating this right environment where your business can thrive, where your team can thrive. What
Yeah.
are some of the things that business leaders can do to cultivate that environment?
Yeah, I think a couple simple things that I'd recommend for any business leader is, first to start viewing themselves as a facilitator, right?
Mm,
Right? Not someone who's supposed to have all the answers, even though you need to have your clarity, right? Not even as a teacher. Like my job is to educate, and I think you need to be an educator too as a leader. But no, to be a facilitator. And a
mm,
facilitator is the individual who's creating the experience, right? It's they're setting up the game, so to speak, of any human interaction, right? And so when someone starts to see themselves as a facilitator, they start to value the different variables in the environment within which people gather, right?
mm.
Like what's the music, right? If it's in person, it's even like, is there some life here? Like, are there some plants or some flowers? Is there some natural light? Like, how do we create a vibe? Uh, in fact, another funny story during the pandemic, I also, um, leaning on the wisdom of gathering outdoors, I created these beach parties in San Francisco. They got pretty massive. They were called Renegade Masquerade. And it was a really fun side quest for me just to create these containers for people to gather outside at a time where people really valued that. And I learned a lot about creating a vibe. And
Right.
I actually found that to influence my facilitation and my events. Not that we turned them into parties, but just it was like kind of a great experiment for me, someone who had run hundreds of events at that point, to kind of do events in an entirely different context and um, play with the same variables, but not necessarily for the purpose of growth or helping some company reach its full potential. So, um, I think that first answer I'd give is just seeing yourself as a facilitator or as a
Right.
host, even, right? Might be an easier word for people to relate to. And, from there, um, people are only going to engage fully in an experience if their voice is heard.
Right.
So it's like your job now becomes about like designing or asking great questions that get the conversation moving in the right direction. And, one of my rules as a facilitator is I want to get everybody else talking as fast as humanly possible. I want their voice in the space because I can, you know, give a great presentation and try to convince everybody of what I see or that they should listen or that this is the right path. Um, but really, the easiest and most effective way to engage your people is just to ask a question and get them
Right.
talking, right?
Yeah, and you discussed this how important it is for everybody to have a voice, how important that communication is. But I want to dive into that a little more because I think that's interesting. How important is consistency of communication?
You mean from a leader
Yeah,
or
or
yeah,
both. I mean, conversely.
yeah, I would say that consistency is critical. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the frequency has to be um, more or less, right? Like frequency is a different variable, we could say, than consistency. But I think consistency is what's key more than frequency.
Right.
Um, Another line I live by is that if the next conversation isn't scheduled,
Mm.
then the relationship is in jeopardy.
Wow, that's great.
Whether that's a prospect, even that's like friends, right? That I want to stay connected to, peers that are, um, I consider peers on my growth journey, my learning journey, or it's clients, prospects, people on your team. It's like, do they know when the next conversation is going to happen? Even if it's a month out, even if it's 6 months out, right?
Right.
Um, if not, the reality is there's this experience of almost unsafety in the relationship of like not knowing you're valued, not knowing if you're important, not knowing if even there's going to be another conversation. And when the next like if people just do that, your team will stick around much longer, right?
Right.
So it's having the consistency, right, of knowing when they can rely on the next scheduled conversation, or if a team has a really, powerful strategic planning session, right?
Right.
Or, they have their kickoff for the year. Great. When are we going to talk again in this same way? Or like if they do something more like a creative offsite that gets the whole team really juiced on, being in business with each other. Great. When are we going to do this again? Because
Right.
if we don't have that on the calendar, it actually kind of, oh, maybe that was just one cool experience that we had. And maybe that's not actually a part of the way we do business here. Like we did it once, right? But if we have that to look forward to and it's scheduled, even if it's a year out, right? It's like we look forward to it, right? And so I think that really supports the relationship.
Can you share with us, I mean, of all these people that you've helped, through your mentorship, through your guidance, can you share with us, is there a story that really stands out in your mind of either a person or a business that you really saw a positive transformation in as a result of your help and guidance?
Yeah. I think there's a lot, right? And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the clients that I've had the honor of working with who've inspired me through what they've created and the journeys they've gone on. And yeah, I just feel really grateful for all of the clients I've had. But if I had to share, one or two that kind of stand out from the rest, there's one guy I'll mention. His name's Sam Taggart, right? Some people may have heard of him. He throws an event every year called Door to Door Con, right? It's actually coming up at the end of January, and I think it's the 8th one this next year, or the 9th. And it's this gathering of thousands of door-to-door salespeople.
Oh, wow.
It is quite a spectacle. Like, honestly, even if somebody has nothing to do with door to door, I'm like, just go check it out. Like,
Right.
it's unlike any other, gathering of people. He also has something called D2D University. So he has the largest training platform in the space.
Oh, wow.
Now, what's meaningful about this though, like today, like Sam has big speakers at his events. He had like Jordan Peterson a couple years ago.
Wow.
He's had like a lot of the big names. So it's a thing. Like it's a thing now. Everybody looks up to Sam. Sam's the man in door to door. But I remember when he was just, a manager at a solar company and he had this vision. Funny enough, he came to a vision quest, right?
Oh, wow.
And we were in the desert of southern Utah. And he just really went for it. Like he really honored the experience that we had set up for him. And, he went deep with himself out there and got really clear on, what would be something really purposeful that he could create. And at the time, the door-to-door industry did not collaborate at all. Like it was the most toxic industry I'd ever seen. People just swashbuckling, stealing each other's people. It was just like the worst kind of competition, and nobody trusted each other. Nobody would ask each other for help, right? Nobody was collaborating at any level, right? And yeah, like it wasn't a good space for people to be in long term. And Sam, had this vision of, well, what if we could get everybody together to learn from each other and collaborate in a space where that didn't exist? And everybody thought he was crazy, right? Everybody thought, Sam, you're insane to try to do that in door to door. Like nobody is going to want to show up. Nobody's going to want to send their people. They're just going to get recruited by somebody else, right? But he believed in the value of the vision and that it was something that should exist, right? And was worth taking the risk for, and that if it could exist, it would benefit the industry tremendously. And, I think why that story is so fun is that he did that. He put on the first door-to-door con. I was, by his side, helping him do that each step along the way. And one of the industry's largest companies tried to totally compromised his event, and they booked Grant Cardone to speak at the same convention center right next door. And they scheduled Grant Cardone to speak at the same time as Sam's keynote, right? So it was just this total like, fuck you to Sam, right? And it was totally against the spirit of what he was creating. Right. It was, well, let's try to pull everybody over and recruit them at this event that's actually about collaboration. And, the funny thing is that a lot of people did walk out from Sam's message and went to, see Grant Cardone because it's Grant Cardone and it's free and it's right there. It's right next door. But about half the room stayed. And, I remember talking to Sam backstage, and he like just wanted to rail this company, and he would have been totally justified doing so, talking about how unethical they are. And I remember just sitting him down and helping him remember what his purpose was, right? What his message was. And it was about like bringing the industry together and how, with collaboration, we can all, do better than we can on our own, right? Go fast, go alone, go far, go together. And he stayed true to that. And in that moment, I saw something get born. It's like when it was kind of like he was initiated. Like he went on stage, he gave that message, and those people that were in the room were like, hey man, this is a beautiful thing. I'm going to support this as long as you do it. And even the people that went to Grant Cardone kind of felt bad that they like left the event, and they all came back. And, now he's got like 4,000 people coming to his event every year. Wow. But just to be him like through the trial and see this like amazing thing that exists today, but have, seen where it came from and what it took, and that he had to really be a leader and live by his principles. And that was the thing that actually made it a thing. Like Door to Door Con didn't really exist as something that people were committed to until he went on that stage and, embodied that message in that moment. It was super cool.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, that's a wild story.
It was awesome
for sharing that. And Ben, this has been just an absolutely incredible conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. If anybody out there listening could use the help of Abundant, could use your help, your guidance, your mentorship, where can people find you?
Instagram is best. Right? So just go to Abundant Leadership, @Abundant Leadership. And, to be honest, I'm not too active on social. Like most of the people that find us through their friends. But that's a place where if you want to send us a message, we'll get back to you. And we've got a couple really cool events coming up next year, so people can look out for that.
Well, that's awesome, Ben. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was great.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Adrian.
And thank you everyone for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Ben, thank you so much again.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.